Good evening and welcome to the Greg Tompsett Football Show. Tonight, we're going to whip all around the NFL looking at the Week 9 matchups that matter the most to you. Tonight, we have been watching the first half of Houston, New York Jets, Thursday Night Football, one of the jetsiest halves that's ever jetsed. Malachi Corley dropped the ball going into the end zone. They had a good punt finally, pinned him down to the 2, and the Houston drove all the way down the field for a 98-yard touchdown drive, the only score of the game so far. Terrible, terrible half of football. A lot of Bills fans were torn on who to root for in this game. I think there's some strategy behind rooting for the Jets to actually win, to ruin their draft pick, and to give Houston their third loss of the game. But I understand people rooting for the division and just completely embarrassing the Jets. So I'll never stop anybody from doing that. But as always, we are going to use our friend Uber Hansen, fantastic host on Cover One and writer for Sports Illustrated, and his rooting interest article that he does every week. We will use that as the baseline to check out what games are coming up this week, which ones will be the most fun to watch, and which ones matter the most to our beloved Buffalo Bills. So without further ado, we will jump right in. As we just talked about, we have Texans Jets here. I think there's some debate on whether there's benefit for it back and forth, but obviously giving the Jets another loss, locking up the division. There's actually a scenario where the Bills could lock up the AFC East in week 11, which is just absurd. I think that I get why people would do that. NFC matchups, I think there's a fun game just because, I don't think either team's defense is all that good. The Falcons have had some entertainment. The Cowboys have been a mess. It's fun rooting against the Cowboys. So I know there's some strategy here where there's benefit to the strength of victory and being able to knock the Falcons down and give the Cowboys a game here. But ultimately, I still think I'm going to be rooting for the Falcons just for the fun of it. But as Uber lays out here, because the Cowboys, lost to the Ravens, technically there's benefit there in increasing that strength of victory. Bills Dolphins. If you want to get a good breakdown of that, obviously Aaron and I had Marcel Louis-Jacques of ESPN on to go through all the preview of that. Make sure you check out that matchup. We'll be rooting for that a number one. The Raiders and the Bengals, I think it's obviously here we want to root for the Raiders just to give the Bengals another loss. And this Bengals team has to be really, really careful. When you have teams like Denver sitting at 5-3 on some surprising victories, the Steelers keep finding ways to win. So they're, creating some distance in the AFC North. You have the Chargers hanging around and being able to do it. Heck, the Browns looking friskier after beating the Ravens. They have to get serious here. So I certainly understand the priority for this game, but the Raiders giving them another loss, 3-6 is going to be a really tough hole to dig out of, because then you're talking about needing to go either 7-0 or 6-1, because at the very best 9-8 is going to make it. Very likely you got to be 10-7 for that playoff spot. So if they get a sixth loss this early, you're talking about them having to finish the season 7-0, or the Bengals not even making the playoffs. So rooting for the Raiders there, pretty easy. This is an interesting one as well, because I think the Chargers have been sneaky. The Browns looking interesting. A Browns victory just knocks that back even further for the Chargers. If you want to get really kind of 3D chess here. I guess you could say that giving the Chargers a loss also makes it more plausible that the Bengals get back into it. I'd certainly be more comfortable playing the Chargers in the playoffs than a team as dangerous as we know the Bengals can be. But ultimately, I agree with Uber's logic here. And ultimately, I feel great for the Browns fans because they have an entertaining brand of football. The season's done. They're not going to come back and rattle off the number of victories needed to make up for those 6 losses they took with Deshaun Watson. But now having him out of the picture and having Jameis Winston there to play is fun. It's an entertaining brand of football, and they can just enjoy watching the game. So that's nice for all of my neighbors and friends down around here. Patriots Titans is right up there. There's actually another one coming up here this week that I'll talk about in a moment, but one of the worst football games of the season. So Patriots Titans here. This is an important game for the Patriots to lose, because if the Titans get this loss and the Patriots win, that's going to be a 2-game cushion with the Titans at 1-7 and the Patriots at 3-6 for that number 1 pick. So, as you go through all these different pieces, whether it's strength of victory, whether it's the draft pick, Uber lays out the different logic here. A Titans victory kind of evens it up from that standpoint, and for a tiebreaker standpoint helps the Bills. But I can see the logic of wanting to root for a Patriots victory because it will solidify the fact that they won't get that number one overall pick in the draft. So kind of some benefits either way on that one. Commanders, Giants, not a ton that has to do with the Bills, as Uber lays out here, some, elements that you can gain from technically a Commanders victory. Commanders have been a really entertaining team. The Giants have been pretty terrible, so I don't know that I'm going to watch a ton of this game as I flip around the other screens during the Bills game, but I certainly at least understand wanting to watch the Commanders because Jaden Daniels has been a ton of fun this season. This is the other one that's right up there with Titans, Patriots. Saints, Panthers is, if New England, Tennessee isn't the worst game of the season, this one is. New Orleans to Carolina is just terrible, terrible football. I guess maybe if the Saints get Derek Carr back, maybe we see some glimmers of those first 2 weeks of the season. This has just been terrible, terrible football, and two teams that I hope not to watch any of this game. So we'll let that slide by. Here's another one here. Broncos Ravens. The Ravens cannot afford another loss here to a beatable team. And Sean Payton has Bo Nix playing some legitimate football. We have this Broncos team playing tough. Their defense is actually pretty good. That secondary is good. Patrick Surtain. And I think that maybe they can hang around a little bit, but ultimately, I think Baltimore is just too good. I will be shocked if they lose back-to-back games to Cleveland and Denver. But they lost to the Raiders and the Browns. So obviously they're capable of losing to any team at any point. We'll see where it goes. I think that the Ravens get back on track here, but I'll be rooting for the Broncos the entire time. Jags, Eagles, again, technically you always want to root for NFC over AFC, but there's some pieces back and forth here that Uber goes through. I guess technically strength of victory can make that victory look a little bit better over the Jags, in a game that I don't think is going to matter. I think Philadelphia smacks Jacksonville pretty good. Bears, Cardinals, again, entertaining football. Caleb Williams versus Kyler Murray. Not a ton that goes into it. There's a little bit that comes in with the strength of victory because we beat the Cardinals, so a little something to root for. But overall, just a fun, entertaining game with those two young quarterbacks scrambling around making plays. So a little bit fun to watch. I'll be checking this one out of the 4 o'clock window for sure. But the biggest game of the day, that's going to be the most fun outside the Bills game, is Lions Packers. Easily the best game in the NFC, and I think the best matchup on the week as far as win total goes. In Green Bay, Detroit is an absolute wagon right now, just running through teams. And I think that it sounds like Jordan Love's going to play. There's a chance it'll have to be Malik Willis, but right now it sounds like Jordan Love's going to play, but then they have their bye. So I think that there's a chance they're going to try to be a little bit safer and more conservative here. I think that we see Green Bay able to kind of take this here and balance things out for what's there, because this Lions team's been running really, really hot, just playing elite football. I don't know if they can sustain that. If they keep up at this pace, I mean, they are an absolute Super Bowl favorite here. They have just looked untouchable the last little stretch here. So this is a really good test for them. As Uber lays out here, there is a strength of schedule bump in how it would lay out with these teams. So technically it's a Lions victory that we'd root for, but this is just going to be a fun game. I will definitely be watching this one on my 4 box here at the 4 o'clock window after the Bills game wraps. That'll be a good one to watch. Another one with some entertainment value is LA, Seattle. Because of the order and the fact that we've already beaten the Seahawks, you technically want to root for them because you never know what's going to happen in that Rams game. We've seen how dangerous this Rams team is when they have Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp all healthy with Matthew Stafford. But having Stafford and Sean McVay's mind out there designing a game plan with that talent is a lot of fun. I don't know if Seattle's going to get DK Metcalf back. That'll certainly be an impact on this game, but another one that'll be fun to watch. So a lot of fun NFC games in the 4 o'clock window. I don't know if there's any good. Yeah, the best, the only AFC team in the 4 o'clock window is Jacksonville. So all NFC action there in the 4 o'clock window after the Bills game wraps. The Sunday night game now, instead of Anthony Richardson, is going to be Joe Flacco playing the Minnesota Vikings. We'll be rooting for the Vikings just because giving an AFC team a loss is always beneficial. But going through there, that's certainly going to be a little bit more interesting without Anthony Richardson in play. I think that we'll see an aggressive defense for Brian Flores like we have, and this will be really a good litmus test of how how strong is the resolve of Shane Steichen making the decision to give Anthony Richardson a bench. Was this really a slap on the wrist that they were just kind of penalizing him for being dumb enough to say that he needed to check out of the game for a breather for being tired? It's just an absurd comment for him to make. They're designing so much of this game plan and the talent and so much of their organizational strategy around supporting you. Those offensive linemen that are out there, Ryan Kelly talked about needing to pull him aside. Those offensive linemen are out there like trying to, lay their you know bodily health on the line to protect you, and you're going to say that, oh, I just got to check out for a little bit here, I'm going to have to go take a rest and breather on the sideline. Man, that's what the money's for. Like, you gotta be able to tough it out, man. That's just not how this works. So we'll see where that goes, and how much leash Joe Flacco gets here, or whether this is kind of a short term lesson learned for our friend Mr. Richardson. But I am interested to see the game and certainly going to watch that carefully. And then, of course, Monday Night Football, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's a shame that this is going to be this version of the Buccaneers team, because I think with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, this team can be anybody. Like, they're obviously not going to. They're going to also look crappy sometimes. But when they're throwing haymakers with those receivers, they can hang with anyone in being able to get in these games. With both of them gone, this is a pretty toothless team, and I just don't know how realistic it is. So we'll be rooting for Tampa Bay. Of course, we want to see them be able to get a win. Every NFC versus AFC matchup is easy strategically, but I just don't see a scenario where this team, without either of those receivers, are going to be able to give this Kansas City defense enough to worry about. We've seen what this defense can do, and right now the offense is doing enough to get the wins while they're there. So obviously that offense in Kansas City is not playing at their optimal right now, but they're doing enough to be 7-0, and that's all that really matters in the grand scheme of things. So a lot of good, interesting matchups on the slate here. We'll see how those kind of net out. I'm looking through some of the questions here in the chat. Paul asking, what is wrong with Rodgers? Seriously, like, man, this is a mess. This is just an absolute mess, and it's going to be really, really, fun to watch the second half, because there's either going to be a comeback, which helps the Bills with a loss by the Texans, or just an absolute meltdown from the Chiefs, or from the Jets, and falling to 2-7 in embarrassing fashion. It's going to be pretty crazy. As RJ says here, KC's going to waltz to a 17-0 record and be a team that deserves to be a 10-win team. Obviously, they got to come to Buffalo, so they're gonna have to come into Buffalo and beat Buffalo to be able to get to there. They also play the Chargers are so good, and they play Houston towards the end of the year. They play Pittsburgh towards the end of the year, but there's probably only like 3 or 4 games that are going to be tough. They have 2 games against Denver. Denver is a good enough team that if some wacky things happen, they could. But yeah, they're going to be favored in almost every game this season. They're not going to be favored in Buffalo. Buffalo will be favored when the game's in Buffalo. They're at home against Houston. They're at Pittsburgh. They'll probably be favored at Pittsburgh. So there's a good chance that they're, out of the remaining 10 games they have left, that they're going to be favored in 9 out of the 10. So Buffalo is by far their best chance to get a loss so far here to be able to go through those games. As K. Amori is saying here, Lamar's injured, so that might affect the Denver game. I'm assuming he's going to play, but you're right. I did see that he was marked and had his second straight missed practice today. So that is absolutely worth monitoring. Missing 2 practices on a Wednesday and a Thursday is not nothing. So that's something we need to keep track of and be able to see what comes of that. If he doesn't play, that puts everything on the table here in that Baltimore Denver game, and the chance to have Baltimore pick up their 4th loss. So we'll see where that one goes as well. But appreciate you guys. This is awesome. Appreciate your questions and being able to jump in here with me. And RJ, Greg, give me your best evil laugh at the Jets, please. I got to tell you, when I watched Malachi Corley give a Deshaun Jackson and dump the ball before he went into the end zone, one of the jetsiest things I have ever seen. and I let out a full belly laugh down in my basement watching this game. It was fantastic. So they're showing it again on the game right now. It's awesome. It's just so Jets. It's just so Jets. So appreciate you guys. Let's have some fun. Hop in here, help me out, give me a like, give me a rating, give me a review, press the like button on your way out. This has been a ton of fun. But on behalf of the team here at Cover One and our fantastic producer Chris Seth, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Greg Tompsett Football Show, and we are out.